And a man can fall in love with a man, a woman can fall in love with a woman. There's nothing anybody can do about it.
In just a few seconds, James Baldwin flung the door wide open for us to step into a remarkable journey, where the black legends you once admired set the stage ablaze, conquered the box office, and shook the worlds of music and cinema, yet carried to the grave a secret they never admitted. They were voices that melted the hearts of millions' eyes, that made entire rooms hold their breath, icons who broke racial barriers and prejudices, but were forced to live in two worlds, one for the public and one for themselves. Each of these 15 figures had a backstage that was both glittering and thorny. Hidden loves, the longing to live authentically, and choices laden with sacrifice. You think you already know everything about them. Be careful, because the truth might shock you. And remember, don't look away until you see the very last name. I promise you won't be disappointed. Bayard Rustin. Amid the sea of more than 250,000 people who flooded into Washington, D.C. on August 28, 1963, all eyes were on Martin Luther King Jr. and the "I Have a Dream" speech that would go down in history. But behind the stage, where cheers were drowned out by the hum of generators and the hurried footsteps of staff, stood a tall, slender man with silver-flecked hair, bright eyes, and round glasses, scanning every detail like a conductor leading a massive symphony. He was Bayard Rustin, a man most of the public had never heard of, yet the very architect of the greatest march of the 20th century. Born in 1912 in Westchester, Pennsylvania, Rustin was raised in a Quaker family steeped in ideals of equality and nonviolence. By his 20s, he was already a tireless activist fighting for African American rights, opposing war, and advocating for workers. He was not only a brilliant strategic organizer, but also a warm baritone who had sung on Broadway stages. Yet alongside his talents and ideals, he carried a truth he could not publicly reveal. For most of his life, he was a gay man. In the 1950s and 60s, America still regarded homosexuality as a sin, and in many states, a crime. Rustin was once arrested simply for engaging in a same-sex relationship, a stain that both the press and even allies in the civil rights movement exploited to attack him. In some internal meetings, leaders of the movement pushed him out of key roles, fearing that public knowledge of his sexuality would damage their shared cause. Yet instead of walking away, Rustin chose to remain in the shadows, letting figures like Martin Luther King Jr. shine in the spotlight. Rustin was more than just a backstage presence. He designed the entire framework of the 1963 March on Washington, coordinating hundreds of buses, arranging the lineup of speakers, and ensuring security. The result was an event so flawlessly executed that even Washington police admitted it was one of the largest yet most peaceful gatherings ever held. In his personal life, Rustin stood firm in love. From 1977 onward, he lived with Walter Nagel. When same-sex marriage was not legally recognized, Rustin found a way to legalize their bond by adopting Walter as his son in 1982, a move both unusual and courageous, ensuring they had the legal rights to protect one another. On August 24, 1987, Bayard Rustin died at age 75 after suffering a perforated appendix. It wasn't until 2013 that he was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, and a long-overdue acknowledgement of his vital role. Willie Ninja. If Bayard Rustin was the silent conductor of a symphony for justice, Willie Ninja was the dancer who turned the stage into a living manifesto. From steps in a dimly lit room to runways of the international fashion scene, Willie didn't just move to the beat, he transformed every motion into a story about freedom, the right to be seen, and the boundless beauty of human expression. Born in 1961 in Queens, New York, Willie Ninja grew up in a city that was a cultural melting pot where Black and Latin communities created safe havens known as ballrooms. These were not just spaces for competition and performance, but homes for queer individuals cast out by mainstream society. Willie quickly became a legend in this world, with his voguing a dance style inspired by the angular, powerful, and precise poses of fashion models in Vogue magazine. But Willie didn't stop at being the king of the ballroom. In 1990, he appeared in the documentary Paris is Burning, a work that exposed both the vibrant colors and the underlying struggles of the Black and Latin LGBTQ+ community. With sharp eyes, a neatly tied bun, and movements slicing through the air like blades, Willie became the global face of voguing. His career skyrocketed as he collaborated with top fashion icons. Jean-Paul Gaultier invited him to teach models how to own the catwalk. Thierry Mugler drew inspiration from him for his designs. And Madonna brought voguing to MTV with her song Vogue, though the ballroom community never forgot that Willie and his peers were the true creators and innovators of the style. Willie was openly gay within his community, and unafraid to appear in outfits that shattered gender norms. He used his influence to raise awareness about HIV/AIDS. During the 1980s and 90s, when the disease was shrouded in stigma and fear, Willie organized talks, spread information, and encouraged people to get tested. Behind the spotlight, Willie still had to navigate a society that wasn't truly safe for people like him. On the dance floor, he was the mother of the House of Ninja, a leader protecting his children in the ballroom world. Off-stage, he worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between underground culture and the mainstream stage. On September 2, 2006, Willie Ninja died at age 45 from heart failure related to AIDS. But his legacy lives on. Every spin, every pose on today's voguing stages carries his imprint, proof that art can be a language of resistance, and that dance can travel farther than words ever could. And as the ballroom lights dim, the next stage belongs to another man, Alvin Ailey, the modern dance master who too wove his deepest secrets into every movement. Alvin Ailey. Born in 1931 in the small town of Rogers, Texas, Ailey grew up during a period of deep racial segregation. His childhood, marked by constant moves with his mother in search of work, gave him an early sense of loneliness, insecurity, and a yearning for a true home. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, Ailey met artist Lester Horton, who introduced him to the world of modern dance. It was here that he discovered a medium to tell his story not with words, but through movements that were fluid, powerful, and deeply symbolic. In 1958, Alvin Ailey founded the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in New York. The company quickly became a cultural landmark, bringing the stories of African American communities of faith, pain, and hope to Broadway and stages around the world. His most famous work, Revelations 1960, performed over 4,000 times, is a dance masterpiece that celebrates the spiritual resilience of Black people. Yet behind the spotlight, Ailey carried a secret: he was a gay man. In mid-20th century, America coming out could destroy a career. Instead, Ailey chose to speak about love and desire through his choreography. In certain pieces, attentive audiences could spot male couples' subtle hand touches loaded with meaning and the tension between personal affection and religious pressure. Ailey's life was also shaped by bipolar disorder, bringing cycles of intense creativity, followed by deep depression. When the AIDS epidemic swept through the arts community in the 1980s, Ailey was not spared. In 1989, he died at age 58 from AIDS-related complications. Before his death, he asked doctors to list the cause as blood disease to spare his mother the pain of social stigma. Though gone, Alvin Ailey's legacy endures. Each touring season of his namesake dance company offers audiences worldwide a glimpse of how art can preserve memory and affirm identity. Ailey proved that what cannot be spoken can still be heard through the body, through music, and through the gaze of dancers who carry on his vision. As the curtain falls, the next story takes us to another man of Hollywood, Howard Rollins, a screen star who shared a similar secret, but whose journey was marked by far harsher twists of fate. Howard Rollins. Howard Ellsworth Rollins Jr. was born in 1950 in Baltimore, Maryland. He entered the world of acting through the stage, then quickly made his mark on the big screen with his role as Coalhouse Walker Jr. in the 1981 film Ragtime. That performance earned him both an Oscar and a Golden Globe nomination, setting him on what seemed to be an unstoppable path. Audiences also knew him from the TV series In the Heat of the Night, where Rollins portrayed the intelligent, composed, and principled detective Virgil Tibbs. But behind the image of a sophisticated and talented man was a truth Rollins could never make public. He was gay. In the Hollywood of the 1980s and 1990s, for a Black male actor known for strong romantic roles, revealing a same-sex orientation was almost a career death sentence. Rollins knew this well and chose silence, burying the deepest part of his private life away from the camera. That silence, combined with the crushing pressures of the industry, slowly eroded him. He began struggling with drugs and alcohol, leading to multiple arrests and stints in rehab. These scandals cost him his role on In the Heat of the Night, stripping away one of the most stable parts of his career. Big projects also slipped away one by one, leaving a void that was hard to fill. While his private life remained a mystery to the public, Rollins' health began to fail. By the mid-1990s, he was diagnosed with AIDS-related lymphoma, a disease still heavily stigmatized at the time, especially among gay men. Like many artists of his era, Rollins never spoke publicly about his illness, partly to protect his image, and partly to avoid the brutal social rejection that could follow. On December 8, 1996, Howard Rollins died at the age of 46. Only after his passing did those close to him begin to speak about the man he truly was, a sensitive, gifted artist who had been forced to hide part of himself because of the prejudices of the very industry to which he had dedicated his life. Ethel Waters. After the years Howard Rollins spent quietly hiding himself in modern Hollywood, our story turns back to the early 20th century, to a black woman who became a legend of the stage and the recording studio, yet carried a romantic secret like a treasure never revealed. That woman was Ethel Waters. Born in 1896 in Chester, Pennsylvania, Ethel grew up in poverty and instability. Her childhood was a string of constant moves and odd jobs to survive. But those hardships forged extraordinary resilience. She began performing in small clubs and gradually climbed to bigger stages, captivating audiences with her rich, warm alto voice. At a time when black artists faced severe limitations in the arts, Ethel still rose to become a Broadway star, a Hollywood actress, and the first African-American singer to be broadcast on NBC radio. Away from the bright lights, Ethel Waters' personal life was a subject of speculation. In the 1920s, she had a particularly close relationship with dancer Ethel Williams. They lived together, appeared side by side at numerous events, and were even affectionately nicknamed the Two Ethels by friends in the industry. In the social climate of the era, a black woman publicly acknowledging a same-sex relationship was impossible. As a result, everything existed only in whispers and knowing glances. Ethel married men 3 times, but each union ended quickly. For many, these marriages were seen as a safe cover to deflect public scrutiny. Looking back, it was Ethel Williams who seemed to have left the deepest romantic mark on her life. In later years, Ethel Waters turned to Christianity, becoming a close collaborator in evangelist Billy Graham's crusades. She spent her final years singing gospel music, sharing her faith, and steering clear of any questions about her past. It may have been a personal choice or perhaps a way to protect her image in a conservative religious community. Though she never publicly spoke about her identity or orientation, Ethel Waters is still regarded by the LGBTQ+ community as a quiet icon, a testament to the strength and influence of those who dared to love in their own way, even if they had to live in silence. Luther Vandross. Born in 1951 in New York City, Luther grew up in a family that loved music. He began his career as a background vocalist for artists like David Bowie, Diana Ross, and Roberta Flack, before stepping into the solo spotlight in the early 1980s. From Never Too Much, 1981 to Here and Now, 1989 from Dance with My Father 2003 to dozens of other hits, Luther became the king of R&B ballads, winning 8 Grammy Awards and selling over 40 million records worldwide. Yet while his songs were filled with words of love, longing, and desire, the question, who was Luther singing to, always lingered in fans' minds. Vandross never publicly acknowledged his sexuality. Those close to him, especially his dear friend Patti LaBelle, confirmed after his death that Luther was gay. Patti shared that he kept it private, not out of shame, but because of 2 fears: the possible reaction from his devoted female fan base, and the pain his deeply respected mother might endure if the public turned against him. Throughout his career, rumors about Luther's private life persisted, but he let his music speak for him. On stage, he was a passionate storyteller of love. Off stage, he skillfully sidestepped personal questions. This separation allowed him to maintain a flawless public image, but also left many sensing a quiet loneliness behind his gentle smile and kind eyes. In 2003, Vandross suffered a stroke and never fully recovered. He died in 2005 at the age of 54. Only after his passing did a clearer picture emerge, not just of a great artist, but of a man who sacrificed living openly in order to protect his music and the people he loved. In 2025, the documentary Luther Never Too Much was released, offering audiences a gentle, respectful look at his private life. Rather than chasing sensationalism, the film weaves together his career, his love for music, and the hidden corners of a heart that longed for love yet chose to remain silent. Richard Bruce Nugent. If Luther Vandross chose silence to protect his career and the people he loved, Richard Bruce Nugent took the opposite path. He lived openly from an early age. even at a time when doing so could destroy a person's life. Nugent wasn't simply an artist of the Harlem Renaissance. He was living proof of the power of authenticity in the face of a storm. Born in 1906 in Washington, D.C., Nugent displayed a wide range of artistic talents early on, writing, painting, poetry, and even acting. After moving to Harlem, the cultural epicenter for African Americans in the 1920s, he quickly immersed himself in the community of young artists building a renaissance for black art. Nugent befriended major figures like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston, but unlike most of his peers, he never hid his sexuality. In 1926, Nugent published the short story Smoke Lilies and Jade and Fire magazine, a work that caused an uproar. The story portrayed a romantic and physical relationship between a young black man and another man named Beauty, written in a lyrical, free-flowing style rich in symbolism. It was one of the first works by a black author to openly address male same-sex love, shattering the literary norms of its time. This boldness led many publishers and organizations to distance themselves from him. Even some colleagues hesitated to be associated with Nugent for fear of guilt by association during an era of heavy prejudice. But instead of retreating, Nugent kept writing, painting, and living on his own terms. He dressed in bohemian style, attended art parties with confidence, and let the judgmental stares simply slide off him. Although his works weren't widely circulated during his lifetime, they held great significance for future generations. He proved that literature and art could be powerful tools for affirming identity even when society wasn't ready. In a 1983 interview, he said, "I wanted to write about a different kind of loneliness, not because of my color, but because of my love." Richard Bruce Nugent died in 1987, leaving behind a body of work modest in volume, but enduring in influence. Today, scholars and LGBTQ+ activists regard him as a pioneering symbol of courage and uncompromising creativity. Paul Winfield. Following the almost era-defying openness of Richard Bruce Nugent, we arrive at another Hollywood figure, a man whose cinematic brilliance shone brightly, yet whose private life remained locked away like a script never brought to the screen. Paul Winfield stands as proof that love can endure powerfully, even when hidden from public view for decades. Born in 1939 in Los Angeles, California, Winfield began his artistic journey on the theater stage before moving into television and film. In 1972, he made a lasting mark with his role in Sounder, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, a rare achievement for a black actor at the time. His range allowed him to inhabit characters of all kinds, from upstanding heroes to complex villains, commanding both respect and curiosity from audiences. What most of the public didn't know was that off-screen Paul Winfield shared a nearly 3-decade-long relationship with architect Charles Gillen Jr. They met during the height of Winfield's career and quickly became each other's emotional anchor. But at that time, being openly in a same-sex relationship, especially as a prominent black actor, could close every professional door. Winfield and Gillen chose to love quietly, keeping their shared moments far from the press. Close friends supported this discretion, including actress Cicely Tyson, who even let Winfield stay with her during filming periods to shield him from rumors that might damage his career. In March 2002, Charles Gillen Jr. passed away, leaving a void in Winfield's life that could never be filled. Just 2 years later, on March 7, 2004, Paul Winfield himself died of a heart attack at the age of 64. As per his wishes, he was buried beside his partner at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Los Angeles, a silent yet eternal testament to the love they had preserved. Paul Winfield leaves behind a diverse artistic legacy and the image of a calm, talented, and steadfast man. His story stands in poignant contrast to Nugent's. One chose to be open, the other to remain silent. Yet both reveal the enduring strength of living true to oneself, even if the paths taken were different. Germaine Stewart. From Paul Winfield's 3-decade-long private love, we shift to another story, one where music style and attitude became an artist's way of expressing himself, even without ever making a public declaration. This is Germaine Stewart, the pop singer, who left a vivid mark in the 1980s with upbeat melodies and a message of positivity. Born in 1957 in Columbus, Ohio, Stewart grew up in a music-loving family and showed his vocal talent early. He began his career as a dancer and backing vocalist for major artists before stepping into the spotlight with his 1986 hit, "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off." The song was not only a commercial triumph, reaching the Billboard Hot 100 Top 5, but also carried a message promoting healthy living, and the idea that love need not be tied to sex, a particularly meaningful reminder during the height of the AIDS crisis. Yet such boldness in image and personal expression came at a cost. The 1980s were a time when showing a different identity, especially as a black artist in pop, could limit career opportunities. Many producers and record labels were hesitant to fully support his image, and Stewart had to work twice as hard to maintain his place in the music industry. By the 1990s, Stewart gradually stepped away from the spotlight, partly due to changing musical trends, and partly because of declining health. He developed liver cancer related to AIDS, and passed away in 1997 at the age of just 39. His death received little media coverage, a reflection of the strong stigma surrounding AIDS at the time, which led many to choose silence over celebration of an artist's life. Today, "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off" is remembered as a song with a deeply human message, and Germaine Stewart is honored not just for its catchy sweetness, but for having lived and created on his own terms, regardless of social constraints. From Stewart's colorful pop world, our journey now moves into the soulful, emotional depths of Donnie Hathaway, a man who shone brilliantly, yet carried secrets and shadows of his own. Donnie Hathaway. Born in 1945 in Chicago, Illinois, Hathaway grew up in a music-loving family, showing his talent early by singing and playing piano in church. After graduating from the Howard University School of Music, he began his career as a producer and session musician, soon rising to become one of the top soul voices of the 1970s. Hits like "A Song for You," "This Christmas," and his duets with Roberta Flack, "Where Is the Love the Closer I Get to You," secured his place among the greatest soul artists of all time. Yet behind that warm, powerful voice was a life shrouded in mystery. Rumors circulated that Hathaway was bisexual, though he never publicly addressed his sexuality. In the 1970s, admitting such a truth, especially as a black male artist in the music industry, could end a career and provoke fierce backlash. Hathaway chose silence, living a discreet life outside the spotlight's glare. The darkness in Hathaway's life came not only from private secrets, but also from paranoid schizophrenia. He was frequently hospitalized, plagued by hallucinations and delusions that people were following or trying to harm him. The illness made it painfully difficult to write, perform, and maintain relationships. Friends and colleagues recalled moments when he shone brilliantly on stage, only to sink immediately afterward into a deep, unreachable gloom. On January 13, 1979, Donnie Hathaway was found to have fallen from the 15th floor window of New York's Essex House Hotel. He was just 33. Police ruled it a suicide, but for many who loved him, it was a devastating end to a talent whose full light had yet to be seen. Years later, the Donnie Hathaway story brought his life to the stage, confronting both his struggles with mental illness and subtle hints about his sexuality. The play portrayed a man of immense passion and inner conflict, someone who loved music with all his being yet was torn apart by the things he could never say. Little Richard. Next, we arrive at Little Richard, not just a musician, but a whirlwind of color, sound, and personality. He helped shape modern popular music, yet lived a life full of conflict between his true self and the religious standards he clung to. Born in 1932 in Macon, Georgia, Richard Wayne Penniman, Little Richard's real name, grew up in a conservative Christian household. From his teenage years, he stood out a high singing voice, theatrical performance style, and soft mannerisms that his father refused to accept. At 15, Richard was kicked out of the house by his own father over suspicions that he was gay, a wound that cut deep, serving both as a source of pain and as motivation to prove himself. In the 1950s, Little Richard exploded onto the music scene with timeless hits like Tutti Frutti Long Tall Sally and Good Golly Miss Molly. Dressed in glittering outfits with a towering pompadour, heavy makeup, and high-energy dance moves, he not only created a new musical style, but also redefined stage performance itself. Many music historians call him the architect of rock and roll, inspiring artists, from Elvis Presley to the Beatles and countless others. But alongside success came a lifelong inner battle. Little Richard often publicly identified as gay in interviews, only to later deny it and declare that he had completely renounced such desires in order to live in accordance with his Christian faith. He repeatedly left the music scene to serve as a minister, only to return to performing years later. These 180-degree turns reflected the deep tension between his religious beliefs and his sexual identity, a struggle he never fully resolved. In 2012, at age 80, Little Richard drew attention when he described himself as omnisexual, attracted to people regardless of gender. This was seen as one of the rare moments he spoke about himself openly without judgment, seemingly more at peace with the complexity of his own identity. Little Richard died in 2020 at the age of 87. Though his personal conflicts were never fully reconciled, the legacy he left to world music is undeniable. He proved that an artist can break every mold in both sound and image and leave behind an indelible mark. James Baldwin. From the explosive notes of Little Richard, our journey moves to a different stage, one without colored lights, or the sound of electric guitars, but filled instead with words and the power of storytelling. Here, James Baldwin stands firm, as an uncompromising voice bringing truth into the light, even when that truth makes society uncomfortable. Born in 1924 in Harlem, New York, Baldwin grew up in poverty with a strict stepfather and the suffocating atmosphere of racial segregation. He turned to books and writing as an escape, quickly realizing that literature was not just art, but a weapon. Baldwin was one of the few black writers in the mid-20th century to be openly gay, yet he resisted being boxed into any label. To him, human beings were far more complex than any category could capture, and love, regardless of gender or skin color, could never be contained by rigid definitions. In 1956, Baldwin published Giovanni's Room, a bold novel about a romance between two men in Paris. At the time, the idea of a Black American author writing about same-sex love and between white characters no less shook the literary establishment. But Baldwin refused to back down. He once said that if he didn't write that book, he would have felt he had betrayed himself. 2 decades later, Just Above My Head Again explored same-sex love between black men interwoven into a broader canvas of social injustice, religious faith, and community strength. Baldwin used the perspective of an outsider both as a black man in a white-dominated America and as a gay man in a heteronormative society to dissect oppression in all its forms. That vantage point allowed him to see through the polished veneer of social norms, exposing the power structures and forgotten lives beneath. Beyond literature, Baldwin was a tireless activist. He lectured, wrote essays, and engaged in public debates on civil rights war and gender equality. His voice, both logical and deeply emotional, inspired generations of writers and activists after him. Baldwin died in 1987 in the south of France, where he had spent his final years in peace. Yet his words still resonate, reminding us that truth never goes out of date and that the power of language can shake even the most unyielding walls. Sammy Davis Jr. After James Baldwin, another name that has surprised many is Sammy Davis Jr. Born in 1925 in Harlem, New York, Davis entered the entertainment world as a young boy, touring with his father and his godfather in vaudeville troupes. His natural talent and versatility helped him become a member of the Rat Pack, the legendary group that included Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and other iconic names. On stage, he could sing jazz, perform tap dance, and make audiences laugh out loud with comedy sketches. Davis's love life often caught the attention of the press. He was married 3 times, most famously to Swedish actress May Britt, a marriage that caused intense controversy in 1960, when interracial marriage was still considered unacceptable in many states. Before that, Davis had dated actress Kim Novak, but their relationship was allegedly cut short due to pressure from Hollywood moguls and the underworld. Alongside his public relationships, Hollywood had long been abuzz with rumors that Sammy Davis Jr. had same-sex relationships. Some close friends and colleagues hinted that he had secret romances with men, though Davis never confirmed this. In the entertainment industry of that era, such an admission could have destroyed the career and image he had worked so hard to build. A major turning point in Davis's life came in 1954, when he was in a serious car accident that cost him an eye. During his recovery, he explored various religions and ultimately converted to Judaism. This decision not only changed his worldview, but also made him one of the few prominent black entertainers to openly practice the faith. Sammy Davis Jr. passed away in 1990 at the age of 64 after battling throat cancer. He left behind a monumental artistic legacy, breaking down many racial barriers in the American entertainment industry. Though parts of his private life remain in shadow, the image of Davis, the artist who could do it all on stage, lives on in the public's memory. Harry Bellfonte. Leaving the spotlight of Sammy Davis Jr., our journey continues to another figure who also stood on the grandest stages of the 20th century, not only to sing or act, but to fight for justice. That man was Harry Bellfonte. Born in 1927 in New York City to a Jamaican family, Bellfonte spent his childhood between the United States and the Caribbean. This multicultural upbringing shaped his musical style, blending calypso folk and pop. In 1956, his album Calypso became the first record in U.S. history to sell over 1 million copies, earning him the title King of Calypso and bringing Caribbean music into the mainstream. Bellfonte was not only a singer, but also a talented actor, winning an Emmy, a Tony, and 3 Grammy Awards. He was among the first black artists in Hollywood to take on leading roles without being confined to racial stereotypes. Films like Carmen Jones, 1954, and Island in the Sun, 1957, not only cemented his place in the industry, but also helped change how American audiences perceived black actors. Beyond the arts, Bellfonte was a passionate human rights activist. A close friend and ally of Martin Luther King Jr., he helped organize and fund major events in the civil rights movement. For decades, he spoke out against injustice worldwide, from apartheid-era South Africa to global humanitarian crises. However, some unofficial accounts and entertainment industry rumors suggested that Bellfonte may have had a discreet gay private life. There is no concrete evidence, and he never addressed such claims publicly, but his silence left questions about his personal life as part of the Bellfonte legend both mysterious and intriguing. Harry Bellfonte passed away in 2023 at the age of 96, leaving behind a vast legacy music that broke barriers, roles that redefined Hollywood standards, and a lifetime of tireless advocacy for social justice. He stood as proof that art and activism can intertwine, and that sometimes what a person keeps private can be just as significant as what they share with the world. From Bellfonte's trailblazing journey, our story closes with the image of Aussie Davis, a stage and screen icon who chose to guard his private life with absolute care throughout his lifetime. Aussie Davis. Born in 1917 in Cogdell, Georgia, Aussie Davis grew up in an America still deeply entrenched in racial segregation. His passion for acting led him to New York, where he became part of the Harlem Arts movement and gradually made his name on the Broadway stage. Beyond acting, Davis was also a director, screenwriter, and author, leaving his mark with works like Purlie Victorious and his role in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, 1989. But Aussie Davis's greatest contributions extended far beyond the arts. He was an active social activist, taking part in major campaigns against racial discrimination and in defense of civil rights. Davis delivered the eulogy at Malcolm X's funeral and marched alongside Martin Luther King Jr. during key demonstrations. In the public eye, he stood as a symbol of intellect, courage, and integrity. In his personal life, Aussie Davis married actress Ruby Dee in 1948, and together they became one of the most celebrated power couples in American stage and film. Their marriage, lasting nearly 6 decades, was admired not only for its enduring love, but also for their shared dedication to art and activism. However, within theater circles, rumors occasionally surfaced, suggesting that Davis may have had discreet same-sex relationships. There was never concrete evidence, and neither Davis nor Ruby Dee ever addressed such claims, but their complete silence on the matter only added to the mystique surrounding his name. Perhaps it was nothing more than rumor, or perhaps it was a part of his life he chose to keep entirely his own. Either way, Aussie Davis is remembered as an artist who spoke boldly about justice and equality, yet fiercely defended his right to privacy. On February 4, 2005, Aussie Davis passed away at the age of 87, leaving behind not only a legacy of roles and plays, but also the example of a man who was courageous in public life and steadfast in guarding his private world. If you find these stories worth cherishing, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so we can keep exploring the lesser-known corners of the art world and the lives of legendary figures together.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.